Hi, Horace. Welcome to BizTalk. That's my great pleasure having you today. How are you?
Very good, very good. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's talk about yourself a little bit.
Okay, so my name is Horace Ho. I'm from mainland China and studied here in UK. Initially, I studied engineering at Oxford, but later on, I moved career into user experience design. And I've been spending my formative years using user-centric design principles to help both startups and the mature business finding winning business strategies.
Great. Thank you. Let's talk about your business, your venture. What is it about?
Okay, so the platform we are building is called Sparks, and the issue we are addressing is information overload. So we are living in this age of information overload, and what we are facing is that all of us need to consume a lot of content in order to stay up to date. I think one of our complementary businesses, Curio, they did a survey and find average business leaders listen to 45 minutes of business story a day. And a entrepreneur I interviewed, every day he spent 2 hours just taking information, reading up to 10 or 20 articles, and reading 2 books a week in order to keep up to date. And also the other change this information age brings us is that nowadays information is actually very fragmented. 10, 20 years ago, if you want to learn about a topic, maybe you just read a book. Nowadays, all this information, they live in different blog posts, podcasts, videos. And in order to really get the big picture, really to stand out, it's not enough just to, on any given topic, it's not enough just to follow one single topic. It's more important to draw from different sources and form your own opinion by combining them together. And lastly, I think a lot of the entrepreneurs, including the one I interviewed, the big problem they're facing is that they're taking a huge amount of information. They have this fear that they're missing out. So they keep on taking in more content. But they also recognize that what they're not doing is really to slow down and synthesize all this information. So the entrepreneur we talked to, he really said one of his pain points is that all this information, because he didn't synthesize, they just slip through his fingers. And he tried various ways trying to take notes, drawing mind maps, but he felt a lot of these, they are just taking too much effort. He just felt like he didn't have the time or effort to actually do a lot of this. So that is why we built the Sparks platform. And what we are trying to do is really to help knowledge workers in this age to synthesize, to assimilate information. And how do we do it? Is that this is the number of, it's about this fear of missing out. It's actually have very important consequences. So in China, 73.2% felt they have the knowledge anxiety. And a lot of these professionals we talk here in the UK, they're talking about because they're so worried about they don't have all the information they have, they are actually have insomnias. It's affecting their health. And in terms of how we help you at Sparks, the way we do it is that we, on the front, we operate like any save for later platform. So you can save wherever your source with us, content with us, and you can leave a short note. And we call this Sparks note. But with us, you don't have to really organize them. You can just save and move ahead. And what our algorithm done in the background is that we, using semantic analysis, look at all your different nodes and find out how they connect to each other. And once we've done that, we put all these related sparks together and feed them back to you in a review session. So we say to you, okay, we think these sparks are related. What do you think? Do you think they are actually related? Do you want to confirm these connections? And what this does is we actually, so these review sections, we actually create an opportunity for our users to very effortlessly really sort of like to really synthesize the information they take in. So I think you probably heard of an app called Readwise. They're very successful, and they've been occupied by Amazon. And all they do is that they take your Kindle reading notes and email back to you. And what we are doing here is one step further. For us, it's not just about, okay, I just read the notes I took last week and that's it. We are actually asking you to really consider how these different notes relate. In this process, will bring you several benefits. One is help you gain deeper understanding because you are looking at more holistic picture. The other is it helps you to have better retention because instead of just looking at the note once as you are taking them, actually that happens to a lot of people we talk to. And actually, again, this tidbit is coming from Pocket. They interviewed a cultural editor of BuzzFeed, and she talked about a lot of times she do research, finding a good content, save it into Pocket, only to find that the same content she saved 2 or 3 months ago, she just totally forgot that she'd read the same thing. And lastly, it also kind of like help boost your creativity. In a sense, why this works is because like our brains, it learns by making associations. When we learn new things, our brain thinks about, oh, this new challenging new thing, how does it relate to the knowledge I already know? How do they relate to each other? And in a way, it's kind of like, so this is a sort of like relation finding, connection finding. But the brain is subject to a lot of cognitive biases, and also it has limited working memory. So what happens with the brain is that when it's trying to make these associations, sometimes it doesn't necessarily recall all the knowledge you already had that can be related. And what we do is using semantic analysis to really analyze all the nodes you had and find out all these potential connections and feed it back to you, supercharging this connection making process of your brain. In a way, Sparks, we are part of this global smart learning market. It is expecting with a compound annual growth rate between 15 to 18%, and it will get to over $400 billion US by 2025. I think a few trend is driving this. Firstly, it's about the job market. The demand of knowledge is changing very fast. And it's also driven by the aforementioned anxiety about we think we don't know enough. And also the other trend we find is that nowadays learning is increasingly shifting from formal curriculum-based learning to informal content-based learning. And we believe this is the reason that despite the earlier failure of Evernote, a lot of note-taking apps is gaining a lot of attentions. So most notable here is Roam and the Notion. But what we also found is that a lot of these products in the market at the moment, all they care is how to make notes. But maybe in the case of notion is a little bit further about how to share, how to collaborate. Very few of these is actually helping people to assimilate information. And we know that in this day and age, information saved is very different from knowledge that you've mastered and can apply very confidently. And we believe that, if there exists an app that can really turn your notes in your database, to really help you synthesize them, to help turn your data note cache from a graveyard while ideas go to die into the engine of personal and professional growth. We believe that there will be huge potential for a company like this. And that is why we believe that as Sparks, we can start off from this note-taking, a smaller subset, but continue to expand upwards into bigger, more lucrative sectors. Okay, so this is talking about our progress. I think, Max, when we last talked, we were still focused on helping users to learn better from podcasts. But last year, we decided to pivot to really focus on this knowledge management idea. And so really, the platform went live around August time. And what we do is we give users a 2-month trial, and we ask them to convert to paying at the end of 2 months. Of course, I just want to point out here, at the moment, we still use humans to act out the algorithm because we really want to move to the market faster. But what this allows us to do is to offer our users the full value proposition, and we were able to test their willingness to pay. So by January this year, we got about 68 people finished the trial, 9 become subscribers. Well, actually, later on, a few others become subscribers. And we're able to retain majority of those subscribers. I think only 2 unsubscribed, and these 2, they were more sort of like they come because the legacy podcast functionalities we built, and they weren't actually engaged with the knowledge platform. How are we doing with time? And here we are looking at some of the testimonies of some of our users. I think I'm particularly proud of this. So this person here is also an entrepreneur, and he needs to write a lot of content to promote his own companies. And he used Sparks platform to gather inspirations. And he talked about how his productivity has doubled or even tripled after starting to use Sparks. And also, some of the feedback, we see that a lot of users, they are already starting to change the way they approach things. Instead of purely focus on gaining more content, consuming more content, gaining more information, they starting to do reviews. In a way, our platform changed their behavior. And as someone from UX background, I think I'm really proud of that we actually are making a difference for people. And in terms of go-to-market strategy, up to this point, we've just been doing some very preliminary social media advertisings. But in the future, we want to move into collaboration with content creators and collaboration with online learning event organizers, such as nowadays there's a lot of people organizing learning sessions on Clubhouse. We want to work with them, help them publish their notes on our platform, and having those notes making connections with their followers' notes, and have these connections feeding back into the community and achieve a viral growth through that. This may needs to be updated. But at the moment, the fundraising plan is still, we want to raise 500K, raising a seed round for 20%. But I'm also working on bringing some personal finance from China to back this. If that is successful, we may change our fundraising plan.
Right. Before I can ask you some questions, can you just go back and see the team?
Okay. Where do you want to go back to?
No. Just have a look at the team. Who is working with you on this program?
Yeah.
Okay. So can you name this guy? Are they already working with you in terms how long you've been working with these guys?
So Stuart, when we last met, he is already working with me.
Okay.
And Stephen and Monica joined later.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's very fascinating. I'm extremely keen on knowledge, and translating reading information or video, whatever it is, podcasting into knowledge is something very, in my opinion, complicated, and also it's very different from reading and knowledging what you're reading. Okay, that the extremely different. A lot of people and they read a lot, but doesn't mean that you are knowledge about what you're reading. Okay, and so I find what you're doing extremely fascinating and very helpful for many, not only for entrepreneurs or people who like to read and get informed and knowledge as much as they can, but it helps many. How now, when it comes to knowledge, it's very important how we train our brain, okay? Because knowledge is not for everyone. We can read the same book, doesn't mean we are going to read the same stuff. So how do you translate reading, podcasting, video, whatever it is, into knowledge? Because any brain is different.
Yeah. So as I've mentioned, our brains learning by making associations.
Yeah.
And the way we kind of like transform content into knowledge is by promoting you to really think about how some of the ideas, information in this content, how they relate, really to think about whether they agree, they disagree, whether they one complement another. And in a way, as you are really thinking through how these different pieces fitting into a bigger picture, in this process, you really absorb this information and turn them into actionable knowledge.
That's very fascinating. You were talking about having your team coding from now, okay? And what's going to be the next? Are you going to do everything with machine learning and AI? And my second question is, what about the sourcing of information? And how do you decide which is the right which is the wrong information, and to combine them.
Okay. In terms of the first part, I think in a way it is going to be probably a hybrid version. So firstly is our users are manually making connections, and part of those that they are willing to share, we will feed back into the community and other users on the platform. The other part is that we are going to utilize semantic analysis technologies, a lot of them which are already being successfully applied in corporate sectors. What these technology, what they can do is that at the moment they only do text, is they can look at unstructured text. They can find the key entities. They can assign a topic to this unstructured text. And we plan use this kind of information, looking at both users' notes and the original content, if we can, to suggest connections. So, for example, if you have a few content about investment and or startup, they all mention Y Combinator, then we can connect them together. So,
okay. So your user are also content writers, yeah?
Yeah, they can share connections.
Yeah. So they can share connections, and of course they can share informations, and so they can feed, let's say, your machine, right? And the information inside your machine. That's very, very, very fascinating. I mean, what about the traction and your achieved so far?
So we've been starting to do some social media advertisement, and we were able to get a waiting list of 2,400. We introduced 69 users onto the platform, 68 users up. Towards the end of last year, we introduced the 68 users onto the platform. Oops, sorry, there's some issue there. Onto the platform, partly because we're still manually doing the connections, so we don't have the capacity. And 9 of them become subscribers by January. So in terms of people who finished the trial, we have a 13% conversion. So we haven't really pushed it. And also in terms of working with content creators and learning community organizers, they're still early testing stage. I think it's still a hypothesis that we can expand that way. We're still finding ways trying to test this hypothesis and see if it works out. Actually, we just done a backend upgrade. So what that means is that we can now have the scalability to taking a lot of users as long as we don't need to do processing for them. And we are going to test this with some of the content creators to see without the what we call proactive algorithm processing, purely about users sharing their notes and sharing their connections. Would this be able to attract enough people? So we're going to test that.
Your targets are consultants, students, entrepreneurs, teachers. You will start with them. And what's next? How are you going to scale up your business?
So these are the people in the trial so far who are really active. But what we really see is that for anyone who has a pressure to update themselves, who works in a field that changes very fast, will see benefit in our product. And we are going to move sector by sector. And the way we are going to move is by working with leading voices in those fields and have them publishing their Spark trends on our platform and get their followers to subscribe, in a sense, to these Spark trends. So at the moment, one of the field we're looking at is user experience designers. It's a huge community. The community is very much learning focused. We have a connection with IXDA, which is the local London chapter of IXDA. So the interaction design community, and where the local organizers has been mentoring me for a long time. So we are potentially looking at working with that organization as a breakpoint into the user experience design.
Thank you. I mean, let me ask you something a little bit different, but it's very not of my concern, but I'm very keen, as I said before, to knowledge. In your opinion, as you work in between information and translating information to knowledge, where, thanks to AI, machine learning, all the technology we have today, what we can achieve, how much we can improve the way how we absorb information and we translate in knowledge, which I'm asking this because knowledge is everything in life. Without knowledge, we'll never improve. But let me say, we are still very poor in knowledge. A lot of people, they actually read, but they can't make their concept, right? And this is why you have the fake news. Because I'm reading and I'm believing something that is fake because I have no knowledge. So I can't base my reading on anything except what I'm reading. It is very bad. It is why we have the fake news. Do you think we can recover from this? Can we achieve something better in terms of knowledge?
So I think there's two questions here. One is in terms of what we call thought bubble, in terms of you only look at things you agree with, how we broke with that. And also I think there's a very good question about what's the role of AI in this, how they sort of help us gain knowledge in the future. I think regarding the first question, I think the Sparks platform by nature would help break thought bubbles, because we encourage people, instead of looking at single source, we encourage them to look at different source and looking at how different sources, how they have different opinions, how maybe, the author of that content and the background of the author of the other content, why their opinions are different? Is that because of their background, their belief? And I think by nature, when you are looking at multiple sources, and we do look at, in the future, we want to be able to say, okay, these two notes, they actually oppose each other in terms of their opinion on this particular matter. By doing this, I think we will be able to help our users break out thought bubble, looking at things from slightly different perspective. I think the second part about what is AI's role in helping us gain knowledge in the future, I think this is actually a very important question. At the moment, there's a lot of, I think, research and efforts trying to replace human with AI. I think the way it should be working is more about AI assisting human, AI inspiring human to help us do more. And this actually goes back to the design of the Sparks platform. So later when I show our platform, you can see that in terms of the suggestions we made, we actually call these suggestions, which we say suggested by Sparks. We are not saying, oh, we find these two things are connected and they should be connected. we're actually saying to user, we think we're not saying, okay, we're connecting this up for you. We're saying about, let's work together. We think these are connected. Do you agree with us? And in a way, this sort of like partnership between algorithms and human, I believe that's how we're going forward.
Thank you. I mean, that's very fascinating. I mean, you are raising 500,000, if I'm right.
Yeah, I am raising 500,000. Yeah.
And what's going to be the use of these funds?
So mainly it's, well, I mean, it's three parts. One is platform development. The second part is to actually develop the algorithm, semantic processing, and algorithms that will automate the processing. And a third part, we want to really to test some of our growth hypotheses. For example, in terms of, can we grow with online learning communities?
Thank you. Let me close with this question. Why the investor should invest in your company?
What I believe is that, future is about knowledge and information. And really, for a country or for people to be competitive, it really hinges on our ability to turn information, really assimilate it into our own knowledge. And that's how we are going to thrive in the future. And by investing in Sparks, investors are helping, actually now it's already officially, we've got 1 billion knowledge workers working on our planet now. So the investor is helping these 1 billion people to thrive in the future. So that's why we think they should invest in Sparks.
Thank you, Horace. Thank you very much for coming to BizTalk. It's been a very great pleasure talking to you. And I mean, as I said before, I'm very keen to this topic, so we can talk more about BizTalk. Thank you very much. Have a great day, and thank you again.